Hey there, nerds and geeks. You're watching Dill Recommends, and today we're going to be looking at 3 shows: The Book of Boba Fett, Peacemaker, and Jack Reacher. I'm going to be telling you about which ones are worth your time and which one is not. There was huge potential in this series, but unfortunately it came with egregious execution. The good. I really enjoyed the Tusken Raider stuff. At first, in the initial episode, I thought they should scale it back and just show little glimpses here and there, make it match emotional and thematic beats, similar to how Jack Reacher does their flashbacks. But after the second episode, I really fell in love with the Tusken stuff, and I thought, okay, this does need to be shown in its entirety. We also get to see a lot of the cast of The Mandalorian reappear in the show. Cad Bane was a great pick for an antagonist. He's a prime pick for someone to draw out the internal conflict from Boba Fett and bring it into the external conflict of the plot. And of course, there's some fantastic music in this series. The bad. This show is horrifically structured. I could spend 10 minutes on just how terribly each episode is structured and how the season as a whole is structured, but I'll spare you all that. The goal, attitude, and general characterization of Boba Fett in the present day sucks in this show. And while Cad Bane is a great pick for an antagonist, he simply shows up way too late and has too little impact on the show overall, as well as he's not even the actual main antagonist that goes to a literally unnamed character. Because of these major integral faults within the show, I wouldn't mind spending a whole reimagined episode detailing why the show does not work and what could have made it better. Tell me in the comments below if you'd like to see that. The ugly. The best episode by far of the Book of Boba Fett has nothing to do with Boba Fett, nothing to do with his story until the last minute of it. It might as well have been the Mando Season 3 premiere. Additionally, the best supporting characters in the show are from The Mandalorian. It's painful to see. This show often makes Boba Fett look like a buffoon. It's his own incompetence and weakness which causes the great bloodshed that happens by the finale, rather than the greed of those he wants to replace and resistance to his new ideals. And with how little thematic and character work actually happens to the main character, a lot of the episodes just feel unnecessary and superfluous. It's just a waste of time in general. And because of that, the easy fix for this show would be to not have a Book of Boba Fett at all. Instead, I'd rather it be a rebrand of The Mandalorian, which is make it The Mandalorians and follow Bo-Katan and Boba Fett alongside Din Djarin, similar to how Game of Thrones structured their episodes. Recommendation: no, do not watch this series. Watch episode 5 if you're really interested in The Mandalorian, but save yourself from the rest. Small potential, but for a fantastic payoff. Likes. Before the series came out, many people criticized it with who asked for this, who's the show for, but very early on, Peacemaker earned its right to be a series and earned its right for you to watch it. Even if all it had to offer was its episode intro, it still deserved that right. The characters and their dynamics are good, even great. This show really gets you to emotionally invest in Peacemaker and understand his character, which is a hard thing to do after seeing what he did in the Suicide Squad. But Vigilante is certainly the breakaway character here. Plus, there's more great song selections from Mr. Gunn. I hope we get more seasons of this in the future with James Gunn and the cast returning. Dislikes. I feel like Peacemaker's characterization earlier on is a little adjacent to what it should have been. I'd have liked to have seen him more stiff-necked and bottled up, and that would have led to a bigger emotional explosion, emotional breakdown later on in episode 3. But from there on, my ideas and the show's ideas of the character really aligned really well. Not that they were that far off to begin with. Now, this is being filmed ahead of the Peacemaker finale, but so far, I've felt like the white supremacist and father-son angle has been far more interesting than the alien invasion stuff that's been going on. I was really hoping that side of the show would take over the other, and kind of a way similar to Joker in Arkham City, where he hijacks a story and takes over the climax, but that's not gonna happen. So far for me, episodes 4 and 5 are the standout. I'm hoping the finale joins alongside them, or even excels them, and episode 6 is the weakest so far, but if episode 6 is the weakest, that's a pretty good sign for the series as a whole. Recommendation. Yes, absolutely, you should watch it. You'll have a blast with it. Big potential, good return. Likes. Good characters and dynamics, much like Peacemaker. It even has good musical selections throughout the season. The score itself is nice. Doesn't quite reach that high that is Joe Kramer's from the Christopher McQuarrie movie, but it's still good nonetheless. And Alan Ritchson does a great job playing Reacher. Not only does he look the part, but he is the character all the way around. He brings great physicality, great line delivery, has good chemistry with the other members of the cast. He also brings plenty of charm, but there's a level of awkwardness to him that isn't there in Tom Cruise's version, and it really adds something to the character. Nitpicks. One of the things that this Reacher falls short on is those close-up shots that has the actor do a facial expression that's supposed to tell one or two lines of information, and Alan Ritchson, I don't think he has that quite yet. Whereas Tom Cruise was pretty fantastic at doing that, both in his Jack Reacher movies and in a lot of his movies. There's one scene in the pilot which exemplifies this best, and it's Reacher walking up to a diner and he sees a husband being abusive to his spouse. Turns to him, the guy's talking back to him, he's like, "Oh, who do you think you are?" And then Reacher just stares him down, and the dude just kind of backs off, It's like, oh, it's just being apologetic. The expression just isn't there. It's just kind of weak. And there's even, the shot is given like its own little style, and that's repeated later on in moments similar to this. I think what would have worked better, because the facial acting isn't quite there, is if the camera stayed behind Jack Reacher's back, kind of pushes in as the husband goes from wanting to fight him to realizing, oh, this guy's way too big for me, and kind of just becomes docile and submissive. But I will say Ritchson can play the strong silent type, as exemplified later on in the episode when he's in the police station and he gets interrogated, and even further on to the series. I just don't think he has that ability yet to say so much with one expression. Another thing also in the pilot is the initial flashback is really lacking in subtlety, but that's okay because the flashbacks throughout the season, they're really good and they really work well. Dislikes. The later episodes kind of dip off. It doesn't become a bad show, but it's not quite as good as the beginning and middle of the series, especially the climax. I just don't think it's as satisfying as it could have been, especially for Reacher's vengeance. But there's also this scene in the penultimate episode where Reacher takes a crowbar to the body and then to the head multiple times, and yet receives no lasting damage. I don't think that really jives well with the rest of the show. If they had committed to it and he gets hurt and stuff, it really could have added something to the finale. Recommendation. Yes, give it a watch. I think Alan Ritchson is only going to grow as a performer in this show, and I would love to see 10, 12 more seasons of it. Well, that's it for this episode. If you'd like to see longer reviews on any of these series, or have any other suggestions to give, please go to the comments below, or visit mcmdebates.com. Thank you guys for watching. I'm The Real Deal. Goodbye.